Hello and welcome to another video. I'm Maz and today I'm in Gloucester. And in today's video, I'll be trying out this Volvo S40 second generation. A huge thank you to Iqbal for lending me his car. Previously, I filmed his CLK, and this time I'm filming his S40. And if you are a Volvo owner, or a Saab owner, or even a Koenigsegg owner, and you would like a car featured on the channel, feel free to reach out. A quick overview, the Volvo S40 is Volvo's subcompact C-segment executive saloon, which came out in 1995, replacing the 440 and 460, and was in production up until 2012. Interestingly, the S40 was going to be called the S4, and then the estate car, the F4. But Audi have already taken the S4 name, so Volvo decided to rename theirs the S40 for the saloon, and then the V40 for estate. S for saloon, V for versatility. Now the first generation ran from 1995 to 2004, and there was even a touring car version, but we're going to gloss over that. In this video we're just going to focus on this second generation, which actually shares the same underpinnings as the second generation Ford Focus, which is based on the Ford C-segment platform, which includes this, the C30, the C70, and then the estate car for this generation was renamed V50. Even though Volvo is Swedish, the first generation S40 was manufactured in the Netherlands, and then this second generation was manufactured in Belgium. And this car comes with either a 4-cylinder, petrol or diesel, which in this case is the 4-cylinder diesel, and you also have the 5-cylinder option called the T5, which unfortunately this one isn't. And this car comes with either a 5-speed manual, a 5-speed auto, or a 6-speed manual, or a 6-speed auto. This particular car is a 6-speed auto. And if you are a 5-cylinder Volvo owner and you'd like a car featured on the channel, feel free to reach out. Now the S40 technically doesn't have a direct rival. It's a C-segment car, but it's also a saloon, and the closest I can think of is the Volkswagen Jetta. Just a quick disclaimer, yes, C-segment saloons do exist, but they are predominantly booted versions of existing hatchbacks, such as the Ford Focus Saloon. And in some markets, the saloon is seen as a more prestigious option to the hatchback counterpart, but here in Britain, we only buy saloons from prestigious brands, within the likes of BMW, Mercedes, and Audi. However, these are predominantly D-segment or above. It's only recently that we got the A3 Saloon and the A-Class Saloon, and in the case of China, the 1 Series saloon. So you could argue that the S40 was somewhat ahead of its time. And I've mentioned this car was based on the Mk2 Ford Focus. This was during Ford's Premier Automotive Group period. So as a result, inside we're going to see parts sharing with other manufacturers, including Jaguar, Land Rover, and Aston Martin. And here are the specs for this particular car. And whilst Volvo had a performance division called R, and they made cars like the 850R and the S60R, the R design appearance pack later followed through, which is simply Volvo's equivalent to M Sport or S-Line. So this particular car is an R design. And other trims include the SE and the SE Lux. And then, after this car was discontinued, Volvo brought back the V40 name, but this time for a hatchback, which is based on the 3rd generation Ford Focus. And then that V40 was indirectly replaced by the XC40, which is also the sister car to the Polestar 2. Now, if you want to see me review a Polestar 2, click on the top right-hand corner of the screen or in the link in the description down below. And since the discontinuation of the Volvo S40, Volvo has become significantly upmarket and is now seen as a worthy competitor to the Germans. And I also have a feeling their design has improved dramatically ever since Saab has been discontinued. And if you want to see me review a Saab, click on the top right hand corner of the screen or in the link in the description down below. And in fact, here in Gloucester, I always see the local constabulary using Volvos as well, whether it's the dog unit or the interceptors. So here is the front of the Volvo S40, and here is the key fob. So here is the fascia of the Volvo key, and here is the fascia of a Jaguar key and an Aston Martin key fob, pre-glass key. That's because all three of them were part of Ford's Premier Automotive Group. And here's what the front of this particular car looks like. It's an R design, so it has this more sportier looking front end, and it's a facelift as well, so the bumpers are slightly different. And the R design badge unfortunately has fallen off. This car has xenon headlights, and to me this line here, the way it curves around here and then links up on the other side, somewhat reminds me of a Bentley Continental. Coming around, the owner told me that this is a very highly specified example, as it was an ex-demo. Side profile looks somewhat stylish, especially with this R design kit. You can just about see the little lip spoiler on the boot. The wheels are very similar to those from the S60, albeit a little smaller, and this car is front wheel drive as standard, but if you get a T5 you do get all wheel drive. All-wheel drive. This mirror was shared with Jaguar pre-2010, and just to remind you what manufacturer your car is, you get Volvo imprints on the wipers. When I say this car is highly specified, it even has blind spot monitoring, which Volvo called Bliss, which alerts you if there's a car in your blind spot. This particular car has wind deflectors. Even the door handles look like they're shared with the Jaguar XF first generation. And this button here, you press to lock and then pull to unlock. That side skirt does look very aggressive. I'm guessing that is part of the R design appearance pack. Very distinct to Volvos of the 2000s is that you get a shoulder line here, and then you get another shoulder line here with the tail lights somewhat following the lines. This particular car has a sunroof, and I do like that they added this shark fin on the back as well. Coming to the back, again, it does look very good. Before this car, Volvos were very boxy, so it is good that they added some curves to their car when this car was launched. This is a facelift example, so it has the facelifted tail lights, and just like the larger S60, you got that wrap around here on the corners. I do like the S40 font that they used, and the Volvo script on the back. This particular car is a 2-litre diesel, and if it were to be the 5-cylinder example, it would say T5. And here's what the lower bumper looks like. Again, part of the R design pack. Coming to the boot, which in this car seems to go all the way over there. Not sure if it's meant to do that. And here's what the boot looks like. Here's how much space you get. And one thing I've noticed is this little hanger here. So if I lift this up, put that there, it should stay in place. And you got a space saver spare wheel underneath. And because Volvo isn't German, there's no warning triangle fitted here. And as far as I'm aware, no first aid kit either. But there is a little 12-volt socket here on the side. And the only way to close is to pull on this handle here, like so. Coming to the back, again, it is based on a Ford Focus, so it does look a bit cramped here in the back. And this particular car has very dark tints on. And one thing I really like about Volvos is that if I lift a latch here, like so, and then push it up, like so. Hard to do it with one hand, but there we go. It is a built-in booster seat. And then to put it back to where it was, just do that. Just do that. And yes, this car does have Isofix as well. The door releases are very small. I can only just about fit 3 fingers. The silver trim here is kind of nice, though it does feel very cheap. And that's what the window switch looks like. I'll get back to the window switches later. And it's a shame that they did not add any storage cubbies to the back doors. Sat inside now, it is very dark here in the back due to the window tints. I don't think these are factory tints at all. And showing its age ever so slightly are the warm hue filament bulbs for the interior lights. Otherwise, I can just about fit here in the back. Someone 6 foot may struggle. Knee room is acceptable, but foot room is very limited. Reminder, underneath this car is a Ford Focus. Interior plastics are a little on the cheap side, but this was sort of during the crossover period where Volvo weren't the full premium brand that they are now. Grab handles are still nicely damped, and there's no climate vents in the back, but you do get a 12-volt socket. And you do get a center armrest with 2 cup holders and a little storage cubby, useful for cutlery. And here's what the seats look like. And being a Volvo, it has these very distinct concave and convex headrests. Same with the front. And not available on this car, but in bigger Volvos, you have the ability to fold the headrests flat. Luckily, this particular car has the sunroof, so it is a little lighter up front. Here's what the dash looks like from here. Coming to the front, and before I do that, just like a Jaguar, you put in your metal key blade here to remove this cover, so you can slot the metal key inside. Otherwise, here's what the interior looks like. Very typical 2000s Volvo, slightly improved with this R-Design kit. And I mentioned about the window switches. Here's what they look like. They are almost exactly like the ones you get either in a Jaguar, Land Rover or Aston Martin. You even get the same adjuster for the mirrors. You've also got this silver trim here. And whilst you do get some soft materials on the center of the door, once again, hard plastic on the top, but at least it's not a scratchy one. And here's the aforementioned Bliss light, which turns on when someone's in your blind spot. Luckily, there is a door pocket on the front doors. This particular car has metal pedals and rubber floor mats. And I do quite like the Volvo script on the kick plate. And interestingly, even though this is a highly specified car, it does not have electric seats. It is fully manual. And this car has swiveling headlights, which turn the direction you're turning. Now coming inside, the interior feels like a crossover point between your humdrum everyday mainstream cars and your executive saloons. So whilst this particular car has a very nice steering wheel, due to it being an R-Design, and you even get a fancy silver trim on the top, very period correct, you still get this very bulbous looking airbag housing, which was common in the 90s but was slowly being phased away in the 2000s. Reminder, this car was introduced in 2004 and was in production up until 2012. You do get the nice blue Volvo dials, and this was from a time where you have to press a button to undo the fuel door. Nowadays you just press the fuel door itself. It is a multifunction steering wheel, so you got your Bluetooth here, volume, and next track. And on the left side you got cruise control, but there's more. On this side you do get some extra controls. These are for the sat nav, which I'll get back to later on. And these indicator stalks are very bulbous, and they're not, and as you can see, they're not damped like you get in a 3 Series. Though to be fair, the S60 is more 3 Series competitor. We'll get back to that later. The dash looks a bit plain looking. Again, it is soft touch plastic, but I'm not a fan of the pattern on the dash. What I am a fan of is not only the silver trim here, but it's a floating center console. We'll get back to that remote later on as well, but basically you can store things behind the center console. This particular car is the 6-speed auto, and you have to use manual mode through here as there are no paddles included. And the plus and the minus are the wrong way round, because if you're flooring it, you're going to be pushed into your seat. You want to shift up by pulling back rather than pushing forward. That's for the bliss system. That's your parking sensor. Well, it looks like a cigarette lighter, but clearly it's not. It's just a 12-volt socket. It's just a 12-volt socket. Now, even though I'm in a right-hand drive car, the center console, unfortunately, is left-hand drive. As a result, the handbrake is on this side of the car, and the cup holders are on this side, which means if you have a tall bottle and you want to change gear in a manual, your arm would clash. Glove box is tiny, but fairly deep. Here's what the seats look like at the front. They are better looking, and because they are designed, you do get a little bit of bolster on the sides, but not by much. And again, you've got the convex, concave headrests, and I'm assuming that is the coat hook. Underneath the armrest, you have a very small center console cubby, but it is fairly deep. You do have a grab handle here on the driver's side, and it's nicely damped. Sun visors are very big, and you do get a big vanity mirror with 2 lights flanking each side. It has a sunroof. Just quickly turn on the ignition. There we go. It's opening. And then opposite way to close. And then to tilt it, you press the button, like so, and then pull on this to close, but it feels very gloomy closed, so let's keep that open. And this is a fully loaded car. You've got heated seats, AC, and I always liked how the direction of the fan is shown with this person sat down. There's your front demister, your rear demister, airy circulation, phone, I'm guessing this is for the music, and then of course your keypad showing this car's age, and if I press this button, a CD pops out. And that's about it, since this is not an infotainment system, just a radio. And if you're wondering what this is actually the start-stop. So it's not a button like in most cars, but you don't physically put the key in. So you basically twist it like a normal key, and then you have to hold it to start the car, like so. There's also this remote that comes with it. Now you think this is going to be for the radio, but no. If I were to press and hold this button here, and look at the area above the air vents, that is the sat-nav. And of course it retracts back down, but let me try that again. And then I control it either with this or with this behind the steering wheel. And this nav screen also made its way into Aston Martins as well. And I remember they weren't very popular back in the days, so I can only imagine what this is going to be like today. And already I'm struggling with the system. Again, it's definitely not very intuitive. And that's what the screen looks like. I can also only imagine how out of date this map is as well. Otherwise, let's just go back and shut it down. So that's the exterior and interior done now, so let's see what this car is like to drive. So, foot on the brake, turn the integrated start button, which looks like a key but isn't. Turn down the fan speed, into drive, and off we go. So from first impressions, the PSA diesel is very rattly, and from where I'm sat, it doesn't feel like an executive saloon. Well, it should be a subcompact executive saloon, but I don't think it's a niche that needed to be filled. From where I'm sat, it feels like I'm driving a fancier Ford Focus, because as I've mentioned, it is on that Ford C platform. Overall visibility is quite good. I do like the leather on the steering wheel, though this leather has gone very shiny. And same with the handbrake, that one could do with some leather cleaning. And I've always liked the blue dials that Volvo had in this era. To be fair, they technically still have the blue dials, albeit as a screen. And once I come to a complete stop, it starts to sound like a transit van. The parking sensors in this car do sound very appliancey, but that was the norm back in the day. And off we go. When driving steadily, the car is very calming. It does get a few undulations in the way, and the steering again does feel a bit heavy. But as far as other C-segment cars go, this is definitely a lot fancier than those, and it definitely feels very sporty for a Volvo. From first impressions, stop-start is perfectly fine, there's nothing significant to talk about, and it just drives like any other car. I'm sure the manual version will drive very differently, and the diesel does sound very agricultural when at a complete stop, and even more agricultural the moment you start setting off. And this car is from that time when diesels would only rev up to 4,500 RPM. Shortly after this, they then started to rev up to 5,000 RPM. Turn right. The seats aren't exactly very supportive. The bolsters are very thin. So if you do consider driving fairly enthusiastically, it is worth bearing that in mind. Not that Volvo drivers drive like this unless it's an S60R or an 850R. Undulations in this car are quite prevalent. Like, I can hear them rather than feel them. And this is an R design, so usually the sportier appearance pack comes with bigger wheels, which this one definitely has, and lowered stiffened suspension. So I would say the ride is crashy, but I'm only saying that because I can hear it rather than feel it. Overall, I'd say this car is definitely very capable, and it also helps the fact that the last time I was driving down this road, it was in a lowered F-Type, and already I thought that car was nice and comfortable. Here comes a manhole. Didn't really feel it. Best I can say is I probably heard it. So overall, the ride in this car is very cosseting. It's not something I expect from this size of car, but I think it rides much more comfortably than many other cars a class above. And I remember mentioning that the ride in the Polestar 2 was very crashy. I can reassure you this is way more comfortable than that Polestar. And the only downside I can think of when driving this car on stop-start traffic is that when you put your foot down, the car really makes a noise. My only downside to this car from a stop-start perspective is that it is very raucous when you try to set off, especially once you hit 2000 RPM. That was the parking sensor going off. So, on to the next part, see what it's like in the city centre. Into the city centre now. Very busy. Maneuverability, I'd say, is acceptable. And of course, due to its slightly weighty steering, it does take a little bit more effort if you're in a plethora of tiny mini roundabouts. And turn to the right. Those seats are definitely a bit of a downside to this R-design car. If this were to be an SE Lux, I'd probably accept it. But for the sportier cars, I do wish for some more bolstering on the seats. So overall, city driving is perfectly acceptable. It's nothing major to talk about, but then there's nothing bad to talk about either, other than these very weak seat bolstering. And already in front of me is the sharp left-hander. Brakes in this car do feel very grabby, like so. That could be just me not being used to them. So that was another minor disadvantage I've been finding out. Here comes that sharp left-hander. And turn. Yeah. Lots of inertia in this car. That was the content inside the boot making the noise, and my phone nearly slid off of the holder behind the floating center, behind the floating dash. Okay, onto the dual carriageway now. This car has no dynamic mode. The question is, does it go into sport mode if I put it into manual mode? No, it doesn't. So nothing much to talk about. That's foot all the way down. Doesn't really excite. But then again, you could argue that was not the car's intent. Yeah, those seats definitely need more bolstering. Foot down one more. Nothing. That's the lot. And I really appreciate the blind spot system when it lights up. There's a little bit of wind noise coming from that corner. And at top gear, this car revs at about 2,100 RPM. So that's one of the benefits of this later 6-speeder as opposed to the earlier 5-speed. And at 70, this car revs at about 2,200 RPM, which is one of the up points of having this 6-speeder as opposed to the earlier 5. I can only imagine the 5-speeder being almost 3,000 RPM at 70. So let's do a U-turn on this roundabout and see what it's like in manual mode. So once again, for manual, just press to the left. Now in this car, the plus and the minus are the other way round, so you push forwards for upshift and then backwards for downshift. Back onto the dual carriageway, down to second. 3, 2, 1, and it does pick up the pace to an extent, and of course, being a diesel, it does have a lot of low down torque, but I don't really recommend driving it like this at all. Just leave it in drive and let the car do its thing. So overall, this car is a very competent car, but it's not something that would amaze you. The Saab 9.3 that I drove was definitely more fun to drive, but that was a 2.8 V6. So let's head back to the car park and finalize this video. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed watching me review this second generation Volvo S40 R design. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you are new, ring the bell to stay up to speed, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers!